Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to a Division 2 video after my tips and tricks for the PvE Dark Zone, how to get canisters fast, and of course looking into the modifiers. It's now the turn of the build. And one build particularly shines this season, and that is going to be the Backfire build. Yes, the Backfire build got even stronger as we got a new exotic knee pads. This combination is deadly, especially on this build. Already, I have a bunch of survivability within the build, and of course 100% hazard protected. Not only 100% bleed protected, but full hazard protected. You might dip down to 90% in the higher tiers of toxicity, but it's all about the thresholds. Bleed threshold is 91%. Disrupt or disorient threshold is at 91% as well. So being at 90% is a perfect place to be at. And this is straight up a run and gun build. Getting close to 250% critical hit damage within the PvE DZs while fully hazard protected and running around with close to 1.7 million armor. What not only will protect us, but will make our shield stronger as well. But overall, you can adjust this build however you like. The beautiful thing in this season with the modifiers, we have an optimal range of 31 meters with our SMG, so you don't have to be up close all the time. But overall, you want to be running and gunning with this build. Enough gameplay, enough intro, let's dive right over to the build. And as usual, let's start with our specialization. This will be the minigun specialization. Our third reload will be 50% faster, but we're mainly doing it for the 10% armor on kill to give us a little extra survivability. For the weapon that we're using, we already talked about it as the Backfire is better than ever. We're running around with the Backfire, close to 110k total damage, an RPM of 1148, a magazine size of 61 when we reload, headshot damage on 70%, and like I mentioned in the intro, an optimal range of 31. That's the same thing as our magazine size, as we have our quality munitions maxed out. Running around with the quality munitions will give us extra magazine size, will give us extra optimal range, and of course that extra rate of fire and damage to armor. Quite a lot of good buffs within these high quality munitions. For the Backfire, of course, we want to go for damage to target out of cover, and it's all about the talent payment in kind. Dealing damage to an enemy adds a stack of 2% critical hit damage up to 100 stacks lasting for 10 seconds. On reload, apply a 10-second bleed to yourself, which deals 0.5% armor damage per stack. This is of course now set up to the PvE standards, because this particular setup is mostly towards the PvE DZ. We have to switch to the PvP stats. So when we activate the PvP stats, you see that we go up to a 70 stack. So we're gaining an extra 70 stacks within the PvE Dark Zone, giving us an extra 140% critical hit damage. And for the secondary gun, you can use whatever you like. Shoot with something that you prefer to shoot with. Of course, as this build is not only applied to the Backfire. Yes, we are doubling down on hazard protection, as that is also very beneficial against all of the statuses that we get applied via the hostile modifiers and or of course the toxicity within the PvE DZ. But the build will support every single weapon. If you want to shoot with your AR, your LMG, your rifle, whatever you prefer, this build will give you the same damages it will give the SMG. Same goes for your pistol. You can go for the quick step. You will be 6% faster. It is not the 20% that we see within PvE. It will be the 6% faster. And throughout the PvE DZ toxicity, we of course see that minus 10% movement speed kick in. So if you're running around with sports mode from landmark to landmark, I would definitely recommend you to switch over to the quick step, as then if that debuff kicks in, you're only 4% slower. As of this will give you that 6% movement speed. And then let's jump over to the build itself, and of course it is the Backfire build on Striker, but we doubled down on hazard protection. So starting with the newest piece that was introduced this season, these are the nurses' knee pads. Sit still is the inscription on there. This will come with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage, but it's all about the talent. Impervious. Both you and your allies within 30 meters of you receive plus 30% hazard protection. This is if we switch over to the PvE stats, will be 10 meters and 40%. So make sure that you take in account that these knee pads will lose 10% hazard protection whenever we go into the PvP stats. But this is hands down the best combination with any hazard protection build out there. For this build, PvE DZ, this 30% hazard protection helps out a ton, as we like to run around in the DZ a lot more, so you can utilize this build all the way up to the last alert level, and of course also the last toxicity level. You can go out and in of the dark zone to remove that toxicity from yourself, but this setup will hold their own on any alert level and any toxicity status. Over to the other piece that we're using next to, of course, Striker. This will be Unit Alloy, giving us an extra 5% rate of fire. And this, of course, then comes with Perfect Obliterate. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacks up 20 times. So we're gaining an extra 20% weapon damage. And we chose for the attributes Hazard Protection and Critical Hit Chance, and a critical hit damage mod on there. So we are close to that crit chance cap, but not over capping. And then jumping over to all of the other pieces, as you already see, it's all about Striker. But Striker also changes around whenever you step into the PvE DZ. As weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.3%, stacking up 100 times. 1 stack is lost per second between 0 and 50, and 2 stacks are lost between 50 and 100. So this is a lot lower. This is not the 65% that we are used to in PvE, but this will quote unquote only go up to 30%. What I would recommend you is to find all of the Striker pieces with hazard protection attribute already on there. This will give you the opportunity to roll armor cores how many you like, and or of course weapon damage cores how many you like. This build can be set up in every single way. You can make it full red, or you can make it up to 4 extra armor cores that will give you a tons more of survivability, and of course will boost your shield as well. Why am I saying double down on hazard protection? Because yes, the Backfire, when we reload, will apply a bleed upon us. Only that 1%. So you won't really notice it. It won't really be that dangerous. But like mentioned in the intro, there are a lot more status effects being applied by the enemies and or by the toxic dark zone. Like mentioned before, we like to run around and not worry about the toxicity at all. And at level 5 in toxicity, after 400 stacks, the enemies have a chance to disrupt you, just like the enemy modifier out there. So Forik will have a 20% chance to disrupt you, aka disorient you. That hazard protection status might be more annoying than the bleed that you put on yourself whenever you reload. And that's why we would always recommend you to double down on hazard protection, all of the pieces of Striker with hazard protection, and then of course fill it up with critical hit damage mods, just like with my backpack. We went for the backpack as, again, there is a change that we can go up to 40% instead of that 95%. If we switch over to the PvE stats, you see we can get up to 0.9% per stack, up to 90% weapon damage. When we go to PvP stats, you'll see that we can get up to 0.4%, 40% weapon damage. This is still a good amount of damage because we're already stacking with our Backfire. This combination kinda comes together. Then, of course, going over my skills, like I mentioned, I'm running around with a shield. I went for 2 shield health and an extra holstered regeneration. You can also choose to go for a different specialization, go into the firewall, get the striker shield out, because when you are in the faces of the enemy, what you kind of want to do with this build, you will get an extra damage buff, getting you even higher than those millions of crits that we're already doing. This is of course on a tier 2 already, because the core attribute of armor will count as well. This shield will already give us 2.3 million HP, giving you a decent amount of survivability, but still I will just pop it in front of your face whenever it's needed. If you're solo, like I showed you in most of the gameplay as well, of course there were other enemies in the PvE DZ, but I was by myself, I wasn't grouped up. I would always recommend you to still go with the Revive Hive. You don't have to worry about the agents, so just pick yourself up again, giving you an extra chance to keep that precious loot and or sample canisters that you want to get out of the DZ. And then let me run in and out of the Dark Zone real quick and show you the stats within the PvE DZ. Because for some strange reason the hazard protection of the new knee pads will not show up in a safe zone. So for the stats within the Dark Zone itself, of course we have 58% critical hit chance with a 108% critical hit damage. That of course can and will be boosted with that extra 140% critical hit damage of the Backfire, pushing us towards that 250%. When we scroll all the way down, you will see that we have 120% hazard protection at the moment. We are overcapping with 20%. Why are we doing this? Because within the PvE DZ, we will gain a minus 30% hazard protection when we reach more than 200 stacks and or we go into the third phase of toxicity. So if we go back right now, I should almost be close. As you see, it's counting up and it's getting closer to those 200 stacks. The moment that we hit our 200 stacks, if we open up our map, you will see that we get 20% extra damage applied upon us, and we get a minus 30% hazard protection. This, like we just mentioned, will bring us down to 90% hazard protection, but the threshold of bleed is 91%, and the threshold of disrupt will be 91% as well, so you won't notice it at all. It will be applied on you just for a little bit, but 9 out of 10 times the animation takes longer than the actual application of that status effect. And for this build, we are of course utilizing the modifiers. I have a maxed out sample size, so we get all of the boosts all the way up to that 15% rate of fire, as long as you have the high quality munitions active. I have an active modifier, not really using it that often, but having an active modifier will help out. Every 180 seconds or so you can get a decent buff, especially when you utilize those canisters that will activate Surge. But overall in this season it's all about the passive modifiers in my humble opinion. If we look at our first passive modifier, Sand and Stone, increase hazard protection by 30%. This will be that 30% overcap that we talked about earlier. And in a toxic dark zone, increase your armor by 50,000 for each 10% hazard protection. So this is an easy 500,000 extra armor. What comes in clutch? What pushes us close to that 1.7 million armor while only running around with 2 armor cores. And this modifier, just like the next modifier, you will always see on my builds, and that will be inoculated. Toxicity accumulation from all sources is reduced by 50%, and this helps out a ton, slowing down that toxicity. Even if you want to stay in the DZ forever, this will help out a ton. Or of course, if you want to bounce at a certain moment when the toxicity hits a certain level, this will help you out a ton as well. You can stay a lot longer in the DZ. Then for my third modifier, we are using Contagion. You gain Contagious. When you get within 10 meters of an enemy, Contagious transfers to them. When Contagious enemy dies, Contagious transfers to the closest ally within 15 meters. If there's no one to transfer Contagious to, it reverts to you instead. Contagious has no effect on you, but enemies with contagions take 40% more damage from all sources. Again, a 40% amplified damage that will help out a ton. And this, for the Backfire, running and gunning, wanting to be in the faces, is a perfect combination of our third passive modifier, but you can go for whatever else. I would just recommend you to always go for inoculated and always then go for sand and stone as well. These will help you out a ton, especially covering that annoying disrupt status effect. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the build breakdown. A little longer video because I want to break down why we made certain choices. This is still straight up an Hasbro Backfire build, but those new knee pads change a lot around. Hit me up in the comments down below if you're already running around with this build. Did you know about these new exotic knee pads already? Or haven't you gotten to level 29 of the season where you unlock them? Thank you very much for sticking it till the end. Like the video if you liked the video or helped you out in any way or form. If you're new here and or you want to be updated about the Division 2, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And I will see you in the next one. Pure Prime out.